President, I seek leave to make a brief explanation before addressing a question to the Treasurer on the topic of concessions.
This leave granted. Leave is granted. The Honourable Ms Franks.
Thank you, Mr President. SACOS has just published a major review of the concession system in our state, highlighting how a complex patchwork of policies and practice has created poverty premiums and barriers to accessing concessions. This patchwork approach, particularly with varying eligibility criteria, makes it difficult for people to navigate these systems and access the support they need. Further, the current regime for concessions gives rise to poverty premiums, which is where those on lower incomes, such as working-age Centrelink payments, are denied concessions available to people on higher incomes, such as the age pension. The SACOS report also identifies troubling inconsistencies, for example, where renters receive lower payments under the cost of living concession compared to homeowners on similar incomes. By further example, people living in share housing may be excluded from energy and cost of living concessions, and asylum seekers and those not on the Centrelink system miss out on most concessions entirely. SACOS are calling for 3 major initiatives to address the systemic flaws in our concession system: a broad review of the concession system as a whole, extension of all concessions available to age pension recipients to other Centrelink recipients, and the introduction for all concessions of an additional low-income eligibility criteria which is not based on any Centrelink benefits. My questions to the Treasurer are: have you read the review? Will you commit to a broad concessions review and reform as recommended and called for by SACOS? And why are people with less income in our state receiving less support than those with greater income?
The Treasurer has the call.
Mr President, yes, I've read the report. I always look forward to the contributions to public policy debate of SACOS. Ross and his team there actively engage not only with me but my ministerial colleagues. I know Minister Lensik and I'm sure Minister Wade and others. So we always look forward to their contributions. We don't always agree, Mr President, but we always have respectful discussions. On this particular occasion, as I've indicated publicly, I don't agree with a number of the major propositions that Ross and the SACOS team have put forward. I think there's an important element which I've discussed with them before, which they continue not to highlight in their particular reports, and that is the approach this government has adopted, Mr President, is to actually try and drive down the costs of households in South Australia, the important costs that every household has to pay, rather than just concentrating on the nature and the shape of the actual concessions that you adopt. The former government adopted an approach. Electricity prices went through the roof. They jacked up water prices by artificially jacking up the asset value of SA Water, and that had enormous implications for households who are struggling in paying their utility bills, their water and their electricity bills. And so, Mr President, the approach we've adopted, and as I've discussed this with Ross and his team on a number of occasions, is that we need to address, as a government and as a society, driving down the costs for low-income households and all households. And, Mr President, I'm proud to say that we have reported, and will proudly be reporting this over the coming months, that for an average household in the metropolitan area, Mr President, with a couple of cars and a couple of children, Mr President, a reduction in their costs of about $900 a household per year. But for a low-income household, which might not have the benefit of running 2 cars, Mr President, might only have a single car or be on public transport, the driving down of water costs, Mr President, by an average $200 a year is a critical issue for some of those households. The electricity cost is a critical issue for low-income households. And the average cost, Mr President, we've driven down since the terrible travails imposed upon the South Australian community by the former government by about $300 per many households, for many households. So the average cost for low-income households and high-income households is being driven down in terms of electricity costs and water costs, the cost of running a car if they're fortunate enough to have a car, their ESL bills if they're fortunate enough to be in a position of paying ESL bills, Mr President. So this government has been driving down the costs of households, so the costs being imposed on households. So, Mr President, I think the SACOS analysis of the implications of costs and the paying of bills, important as it is, Mr President, misses an important issue, and that is we can benefit everybody by driving down the costs of households right across the board. In relation to some of their other issues, Mr President, we always treat with respect the suggestions that SACOS put forward. The government will continue to consider them, but we're not in a position for some of the wholesale increases in costs of concessions that SACOS are recommending by way of that particular report.